Hey everyone, we are doing a debrief today of our most recent conference at Ical. We've never done this before. Usually we'll have something of an official debrief right afterwards that we'll do somewhere in one of the meeting rooms or up in the Kelly suite, as we call it, just to get some opinions. But I thought it would be great to harvest some opinions from this group of people, just anyone that wanted to jump on from USCAL. Also, as a secondary benefit of this, I think we need to get some perspective from some of you, so you can be thinking about this question. What are some of the needs that you have that we might be able to form the conference around, but also our roundtables, even though in 2025 we have a subject 5D that we're really going to be focusing on. But in the future, like, I'm curious, what are some of the questions you have, some needs that you might have? Now, this would really help Ryan, who is helping us on this platform that we're using to build our community online. And we can create videos, we can create curriculum, but we want to create the things that answer the questions that people are asking. We want to solve the problems that people have. So you can be thinking about that. Like, in your perspective, what are some of your greatest challenges? If you're leading a church, what are the things that you would say to yourself, or you would ask yourself, wow, I would really love to have a guy like Jim Kilmartin to pull him in from this. Like, Jim and Anthony Young. Oh, wow. That session you guys did was it was tag team to the max, like WWE style tag team. You guys did awesome. But, there's someone that maybe would say, wow, I would love to ask him this question, or I would like to have something that would help our marketplace people, for instance. So be thinking about that. So in a general way, we want to get there. That'll help us plan the conference in the future. It'll help us in USCAL in future roundtables, but also in the present platform that Ryan is helping us build, where we can have an online community that is uploading videos and things that matter, that can really be a resource for you. That's what we want to do. So you can be thinking about that. But first, let's go back to the conference, and we can take some feedback. And I guess there's no really formal way of doing this other than maybe you can unmute yourself and very courteously inject something that you want to say. But let's do this. Please limit yourself, so I don't have to. Limit yourself on time to where please don't take any more than about 30 seconds to make your comment or ask your question. Can everybody agree to that? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Something like that.
I swear.
Yeah. So try to keep those so we can get as many in as possible. And then also limit yourself to maybe 2 questions or 2 different comments. That's just going to allow more participation from people. So put limitations on yourself for time and the number of times that you speak. Now, having said that, I don't want to freak anyone out or intimidate you, like, to not speak, because this is why we're here. We just want to make sure we give everyone an opportunity. So regarding our conference, let's start to roll. Like, give me some of your initial feedback, and positive feedback is always appreciated. But also, even if you said, hey, one thing that I thought could be better, we want to hear that too. Okay. So give us those compliments, things that you really enjoyed, things that built you up. And then if you feel like there's something that maybe we can do better, perhaps we can, perhaps we've already thought about it and that's as good as we can do, or maybe it's something we've never thought about. So unmute yourself and let's roll.
I thought it was an excellent conference overall. Very well, not, administratively, very well put together. I guess the only thing that I would love to see more of is opportunities, which takes time, to really sit down and connect with people that have similar interests so that more networking and strategic planning could happen.
Yeah, that's a great point, Stan. And that's one that I hear other people. Rick Menard, if you can hear me, Rick, I know you're talking, but you're still muted. So if you have a comment, you can unmute yourself. But in the meantime, to talk to your point, Stan, that is very well noted. And we think we might have some answers to that later on. I'll talk to you about some of the things that we talked about right after the conference. So Rick Menard, were you saying something? You were still muted. I saw you talking, but I couldn't hear you.
No, it was my plumber saying they're not going to be here to fix my furnace today.
No.
Just when the weather's getting cold and the snow's coming, but it's all good.
Yeah. That's when
Thank
the
you.
furnaces usually break down too. So more time to connect. Yeah, that is a real need, because that is one of the great draws of the conference, is the people that we're able to connect with. Who else?
Mark,
Yes.
Fabio. Yes,
Hey,
one of the things that I think would be really, really good, we could have a way of have like 5 or 10 minutes after each session to do a Q&A,
okay.
because something that it's so much good information and sometimes complicated for us to address everything that's happening there.
Yeah, something really simple happened when John Kelly gave his sermon Tuesday night. He gave space for us to just turn around and talk to somebody. And that little bit of space that he gave us to, hey, turn around, find 3 or 4 people there around you and just talk about this and see what that little bit of space, like, I thought was super effective. So even just that little bit is really necessary. So we'll write these suggestions down. Thank you, Fabio.
I felt like this year's conference for me was the most connecting that I've been to so far over the past 4 or 5 years. And partly that's because I'm starting to get to know more of you and see the regular faces. I was also very encouraged to see more in the 45 and under demographic that are starting to inch
Right down
forward into the conference. And I would love to see more. I actually invited several more from our network to come, and it just didn't work out. But maybe I can get a push earlier on. But I think that will be our strength going forward, is really the ability to draw in younger leaders, whether they're not in the role of an apostle yet or not, is kind of just to breathe life in them. Marketplace, just to get us in the same room. And hearing the stories of what God is doing around the world, I think, is so powerful for any age, to see what God is doing in the world. So I was very encouraged. I would say, by way of recommendation, I would love to see a focus on evangelism and mission, getting that as part of our core. And one of the things we're doing in our network is saying, how do we make the congregational movement missional again? And not just leaving it to the missions agencies per se, but really a part of the cultures of our communities. And I think that would be a great focus that we could look at in the future.
Yes. I thought doing the morning like we did on Tuesday, and having those opportunities for people to come and give their reports from what they're doing around the world. And then I really enjoyed just it was a shotgun or machine gun, maybe more appropriately, approach in the USCAL session that we did at 2 p.m. on the first day, where our conveners came up and just, gave a little synopsis just about the roundtable. So it was just great to see those people. I love our conveners. We have a great team of conveners, and I thought they did an outstanding job, except for Jeff. Jeff wasn't sure that he was supposed to come up, and I saw him afterwards. So Jeff, I'm going to give you special opportunity now to say what could have been said on Tuesday. But we had an incredible roundtable, and Jeff, Nikki, and I, since we travel so far, we were able to stay out there, be in his church, which was just delightful to be with your people. and then to teach in his school, which was again such an honor. But Jeff, like, give us your perspective from the roundtable, of course, but also from the conference, because you've been coming for years as well.
I really enjoyed some of the stuff that probably maybe wasn't totally apostolic or absolutely planned. There was one meeting I was in that John Kelly just talked about how he mentored people and he poured into people. And I was taking voracious mental notes. And that's not even something that I would put that more in the pastoral category. But honestly, it's not a category that I'm very strong in. So I'm like, wow, I need to start doing those things. But I really also love and this has been going every year. Probably the two things that people, when they ask me about the conference, that I say is that number one, I get to meet so many people internationally that I would never meet otherwise. And that's opened great doors for us. But secondly, I think that our speakers do such a great job of presenting things in new ways. I go to all kinds of conferences, hear all kinds of topics, but it seems like at Ical, they're presented in new ways, and I get new perspectives on ways to think of things I've thought of before. I always walk away with months and months worth of processing that I end up doing, and so I love what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Mark, if I could share for a moment.
Yes.
So some of you have not had a chance to meet. My wife and I have been in traveling prophetic ministry for 38 years and have been coming to Ical for over 20 years, starting with the apostolic leader I worked with in Hampton, Virginia, Ron Johnson. But through the years, one of the things that's really benefited me is being exposed to apostolic thinking, from the marketplace to kingdom to the church, having been coming through Assemblies of God and then being mentored in the prophetic from the 80s and traveling in that sphere. Many of you have poured into my life, just conversations. I love the teaching, and that's been great. But for me, I think the testimonies, somebody was giving a testimony over this past week of how there were key prophetic words along their way in the apostolic journey. And that's something very helpful sometimes for people in prophetic, so they don't just feel like, hey, it's standing up and lining everybody up and giving a word, but it brings apostolic strategy into that understanding. And a lot of the conversations through the years, not only, like Jeff said, opening doors for ministry, and I don't come there to book a service, but it's opened doors around the world, and that's been a blessing. As far as things that I could see that would be helpful is there are people in the prophetic, the younger generation, that we're mentoring. And I'd love to see a way of not just bringing them with me to be exposed to that, but maybe even having some conversations. It's not saying there has to be a prophetic presentation from the platform, though that's great, but maybe opportunity, whether it's at USCAL roundtables, Ical, but something for some of the younger prophetic people to be around and hear those apostles that have a special affinity and heart for prophetic people in the next generation to arise with an apostolic heart and mindset. So there are great benefits I've had over the 20 plus years of coming to Ical. I look forward to hopefully getting to a regional sometime this next year with some of you guys, but then would love to find a way, again, to bring the next generation prophetic people, not just to a prophetic conference, but an apostolic conference where they can learn along with all of us.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And even Jeff brought up something. So let me speak here for a second. Jeff brought this up about being pastoral. Okay. So when we unpack 5D this year, I fully expect that we're going to have a much better holistic view of fivefold ministry. So my position is that it's been necessary to extract apostles and prophets from the fivefold ministry in the last 20 years to study their roles. But it's like a motor that you disassemble. Now it's time to reassemble that motor and try to make it work. And I think that we try to make it work in local church. That's the testing ground. Not to say that it doesn't go into other spheres, that it does. But the central point really is local church. And I think we're going to see more and more what it means truly to be an apostolic prophet. I think we've seen some apostolic prophets, but most of the fivefold ministry until now has been very pastorally dominated. And I think that once reassembled fully, and we've seen places where it's been reassembled fully, that the flow comes from the apostolic. In other words, in the book of Acts, Acts chapter 2, the only gift represented in the upper room was the gift of apostle. We don't know about prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers at that point. But they emerged. But here's the unique thing. They emerged from the apostolic nest. Okay, so they emerged as apostolic prophets, apostolic pastors, apostolic evangelists, apostolic teachers. So I think in our day, in our stream, that same phenomenon needs to happen again, so that, what I think maybe Jeff is picking up on, yeah, that's pastoral, but it's apostolic pastoral. It's a different kind of thing than just being strictly pastoral. And what I think will happen is our conference will more and more reflect a more fivefold ministry perspective on things. And so we'll have room maybe for apostolic prophets, apostolic pastors, apostolic evangelists, and apostolic teachers that will feel really comfortable in our family, we'll call it. And I think that's probably a phenomenon that we're starting to experience even now. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. And as we want our conference to reflect what God's doing in the movement today, not reflecting what God did in our movement 20 years ago or what God did in our movement 10 years ago. This conference reflects now, and our movement is flowing. And the worst thing that happens in a movement, probably as everyone knows, is that movements stalemate because they don't discern how to connect with the bigger body or how to be in the flow with the bigger body of Christ. And they make this mistake that what God did in our circles, he did and he's done. And I think that Lutheran churches are stuck in Martin Luther's time. Episcopal churches are stuck in Old England time, or maybe in the American Revolution if they're Episcopal. In other words, every denomination seems to just get stuck in the place where they received their kind of distinctive phenomenon. And so we would be not wise to think that could never happen to us. And it could happen to us, that we get stuck in a apostolic mindset that is from 2004 or year 2000 or 2010, a prophetic mindset that's stuck in 2010 or 15 even. And so we need to make sure that our conference, our organization, and what we do is current on this wave. Otherwise, we'll be in the old wave and the new wave moves on without us. And one of the keys to getting the next generation is to be on the wave where it's headed more than on the wave where it has been. And we've got the right people to make that happen. We have really good people throughout our organization that will help us achieve that. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Would you like to say something about that, babe?
Good.
All right. Okay, moving along. Was there anybody else that has a comment? Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, it's actually not related to the conference so much, but I don't know if anybody knows the name Steve and Rita Fidel. He's a prophet of God. He was from Rochester, New York area, and as of late lived down in Cape Canaveral, Rockledge, Florida. He went on to be with the Lord today. Traveled extensively around the world, but up here in New England and New York and stuff, but precious brother. I thought the conference was awesome. I love the connecting times as well. And when the brother was talking about the prophetic, Brother Jim, your daughter was there and was in the room of the prophetic. That was very exciting to see a teenager, up with the older folks getting mentored. So that was exciting. I think a topic would be for the next generation coming. How do you evolve from being a pastoral or in any of the fivefold ministries and emerge into the apostolic? You know, is there a method other than School of Hard Knocks to get there? Just a thought. But I thought it was an amazing conference. We need a bigger venue, by the way.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Each one of those rooms, and Lynn knows the numbers specifically, but I was told is about to take that. We're three of the four major spaces in the ballroom, and it's like $10,000 a day to open up a side section, something like that. So yeah, it's a big commitment to open up that section, but like that would really be an answer to prayer. And I think we can do it. I think we can do it. I think we can have 100 more people next year than we had this year. Everybody just needs to see the value in our conference enough to say, hey, I'm going to bring my team. I'm going to bring a couple of my worship team, maybe it's local church, or you say, I've got a couple other pastors that need to be a part of this. And they don't have to be an apostle to come to this conference. In fact, I think part of maybe becoming apostolic is to come to this conference and to start seeing it and being in the environment. Jim, you with your daughter being there, right? What was her reaction to that?
Oh, she loved every moment of it. I mean, a lot of you guys use the old term doted all over her, so she loved that, I'll tell you that. But no, it was great. It was a great time. She's 18 and senior in high school, and it was very impactful because it helped her see things bigger. And so, I mean, next year I'm already thinking I'll bring my 23-year-old daughter, maybe my daughter and son-in-law as well. So I think that there's going to be for me, I already have a desire to bring my 20-year-olds with me. And then I was thinking about bringing, I'm in Baltimore, but bringing the ministry school students. I know that the church down there in Texas does that. And gosh, this is part of the development and raising them up. So if we would do that, and who is it that has the ministry school, had all the students? Norton's, right?
Yeah.
So the Nortons had theirs, and so that's almost like a whole nother track that we could have there for these young ones understanding sonship. Here you were talking about how the question of the moving maybe from that pastoral to the apostolic, and it really is understanding sonship before you can ever understand fatherhood. And that's a real important aspect of what we need to do. But I would say I thought it was fantastic. I agree with Ben. I enjoyed it immensely. I love seeing the expansion this year, and I think I told Lynn this, but I do like the Jehovah app. I think we need to create a song for that. You know, there's no God like Jehovah, but there's no app like Jehovah, and I think there should be a song for that. But other than that, we're in this place, I think, around the nation and around the world, that so many of the apostolic leaders that have been a part of that Jesus revolution movement that God brought forth, we have to look at that place of transition and succession and how we do that properly. And we're just walking through that right now, Bishop Art Pierce and myself. And so it's been good, but it's kind of some new territory. Not a lot of books, not a lot of things are put out there about it. And I think in the apostolic movement, we have to do succession well. Like, it has to be done well. Otherwise, it dies with the Kellys and the Bill Hammonds and others. But we got to grab hold of this and say, how do we do it well?
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Whoever else, if you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and make a comment.
I think in order to do succession well and to reach back to the next generation, it's important for us leaders, who obviously we're getting older every day, but that we have to stay progressive in our thinking. We can't get stuck. We can't get closed-minded. We can't just relate to the good old days the way Mama and Papa did it, the way we've always done it, it's worked. Why would we change? Why would we want anything different? So I think the onus is upon us as leaders who are aging, that we've got to be responsible for ourselves, to stay progressive, to stay open-minded, to reach back to that generation and treat them as emerging and equals rather than less than, because we do have a tendency to do that. Well, when you're 45, then we'll let you do something in ministry. By then, we've lost them. It's too late. So we have to reach out to the 18-year-olds, to the 20-year-olds, and say, hey, come along, do this with us, get in this prophetic stream with us, and do prophetic ministry in the room. And we mentored try along with that time, and so it's imperative for us that it's our responsibility to do that. We can't expect them just to jump up because they're reticent, they're insecure, they're unsure of themselves. This is all a lot of times new territory for them. So it's up to us to say, yeah, we're going to stay on the cutting edge ourselves. We don't want to get old and crusty. Even though we're getting old, we don't have to get crusty. We don't have to get locked in our religious and old mindset, but we've got to stay open, stay progressive, stay fresh in our thinking. And that will be attractive to this generation coming up. They will want to be with us. They will want to learn from us. They will want to run with us. They will want to come alongside rather than looking outside for a different stream. I think that we have to keep that mindset for ourselves that, yeah, we want to stay on top of our game, if you will.
Yeah.
It's important for us.
Excellent.
Yeah, on that, Nikki, I'd say, we need oil. We need oil with what we do. And we've lost the younger, in the apostolic, in a lot of ways, we've lost the younger generation to the worship only movement, or because it's excitement, it's entertaining, it's an experience.
Right.
And we've lost a lot of that younger generation. So there has to be that combination. And we saw the ARC movement really come up, and it's been up and down. But with that is, I think we need that oil and to grab hold of. So progressive, grab and hold, and continuing to stay on the know-how. I think you're right on with that for the younger ones.
Thanks, Jim.
Yes.
I love what Nikki and Pastor Jim actually shared. It's so dearly in my heart. And Ben and I had an experience when both of us went to Korea to the Lausanne conference. And we happened to see in the middle of all the people, we found one person that my husband knew for a while. I will not disclose his name. But one of the questions I asked him, because that's one of my passions, to bring the next, and I don't call it the next generation, I call it the now generation. If we don't do something now, the next is going to be 10 years and nothing is happening.
Right.
So I asked him, so who is your next successor? And the person's answer was, he's in his 80s, and he says, basically, I didn't raise anybody. And when I die, this is dying. And that was so painful. And I said, you still have time. You still can raise somebody. And then my husband and I did talk to him about, hopefully he heard a little bit of what we were saying. Please raise somebody, because there is still time for you to do it. So this is excellent. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And Jim, I do love your daughter. Seeing her in there, it was refreshing. If we knew that we can bring younger, we would have brought some of our kiddos, but this is good. It's always a beginning, So thank you.
One of the things I say that's for the benefit of the group, Nikki and I were privileged to go to the Tikkun conference, their general conference in Baltimore. One of the things that's so impressive are the whole families. Like in the conference session, there were kids from all ages, in the strollers, up through toddlers to tweeners to teenagers and young people. And I thought that was it just was outstanding. Such a blessing.
Amen. One of the things, I've been sitting here kind of quiet and listening and talking, and Cindy was supposed to be with me on this, but she wasn't able to. But one of the things that we noticed is that we're doing a lot to talk about in dealing with our roundtables and with our conveners, having families involved, having wives involved. because this has been a lot of times it's just the guys that are on there, and sometimes our wives are not as involved. So if your wife is not, I want to encourage you to encourage her to do this. But I love the fact that throughout the conference, it was Mark and Nikki that were talking, and they each had a role. And Mark, I kind of mentioned this to you, but I think it's something that we should look at through next year. Is that, you know, we talk about this from a standpoint of the amazing gifts that are in our wives. And we say we want this to be husbands and wives. And then we did all these meetings and we had a section on the women. And, you know, we did have a couple of places where there were some women just sitting on the council. I think we need, you know, we said we pulled every barrier. We're not looking at, you know, whether you're speaking English or speaking other languages, what country you're coming from, the color of your skin. But the one barrier that we have that was very noticeable was when we started talking about doing the wives, we had their little moment. And it was great what came. I think it was awesome what came. But, you know, some of those conferences or some of those sessions, I would have loved to have heard the perspective of the women that were doing the women in ministry section in those main conferences. I would like to hear from Nikki the prophet, not just Nikki the woman prophet. I would like to hear from the campus pastor, Susie, who took over when Don put her in a position over there because she's just running. And I think that we need to figure out how to recalibrate the mentality that is just still kind of floating out there a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the comments that was kind of resounding to me, because people would come to me and kind of share this, is that the questions they were asking, or much like what you're saying, Tim, is that they were saying that they did want to hear from the women more, but not simply just on women ministry. Because I mean, I function in our church as a pastor as well as a prophet, but I teach on all kinds of things. It's just not, I don't like every time I open my mouth, it's not talking directly to women for women's ministry, right? We minister to the body, men and women alike. And I think that brings an element and a perspective that is necessary. And I'm not tooting my own horn or trying to make a place for myself either, but that's just a comment that resounded several times to me from other people in the conference that would just say, hey, can we hear more?
Yeah.
I think that is very, very important. And I love it. I'm really hoping we can lean into that and see some of that come about. So
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. I'm curious. Ryan, can you give us a little synopsis? I thought you did a great job in giving the little 5-minute
Great.
well, I don't know, the description of this communication platform that we're using called Mighty. It's still definitely in the test phase for us of learning how to use it, number one, but seeing if there's enough of interest there to where people are going to get on this platform and create a kind of USCAL community. So anything else you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, let me just share the screen. Is that okay? Real quick, I'll just go give you guys a vision because I know it's been a while and you've slept since I was up there and I did it really quick. Oh, if you can make it so I can share real quick, Mark and all.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have me do that, right? Allow. There it is.
Awesome.
Easy enough. All right.
Yeah, so this is the platform, and I've been building communities for a while, and Mighty Networks is not real new, but they keep coming out with new features, and the thing that sets them apart is they connect people together very well. And so the idea of this is just for y'all to be able to meet outside of just the yearly conferences. All the communities I've ever built, like the Amazon group that I had where we're teaching people how to make money on Amazon, the people who did the best were folks like that were in our group that had the support. And so the goal of this is just for you to have connections with each other outside of the annual events to learn. And so that's why we're asking what's the content that you need. And so you guys mentioned a succession plan. Well, that could be training inside this. And so we got the welcome section here. There's basically just 4 parts to this. A welcome section, which you probably won't go to until I mean, after you've gone into it, you see this page once and you never really need to go back. This is a navigation video, but I'll do this real quick live. The discussion is very much like a Facebook group. So if you're familiar with Facebook, you will know how to use this. You can post any question. You can just, hang out and chat here, post encouragement, and, ask questions, just whatever you need. Some people are already posting pictures from the event. Mark, you posted about your church service, and then we had a Zoom call invite here. We also have the live events and replay. So this live event we're doing now, I'll get the replay from Mark, and I'll make a replay section right up here. We can go back and watch all these Zoom calls. But the big piece of this that I feel like is going to be a neat value is this. And now you're seeing the admin side of things. I had the church planning section here is just as a placeholder, but I got rid of it because there's not any content there. I was just showing Mark what this can do. But we had talked about having a section for all the conveners, and you guys could post any video that you want that you felt would be a benefit to the community. So I reached out to all the USCAL conveners and said, just get me information and I can, I'll post it for you for a while and or show you how to do it on your own. Either way, I'm happy to help. But it's just a place to hang out, to learn, and use it as a resource. Let me know if you have questions about how to potentially use this. But I feel like if you get in community together like this, you'll go faster. Like you guys were talking about having more networking. We can do networking on a platform like this. And so relationships can happen on something like this, and then partnerships are formed and ideas come about when you connect together. So that's the power of it.
Okay. Ryan, would you mind giving any contact information that you feel comfortable giving in the chat?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I'll do it right now.
I already saw Jeff McCracken had a question in the chat. So I'm not going to distract myself with the chat right now. So maybe if you could answer some of those questions, that would be great.
Yeah, so the chat there, Mighty does have it's not an app on a computer, it's an app on the phone. You can download it in Apple or Android. And when you get into the group, there's a checklist, and one of the checklist options is to download the app. And then here's my cell phone.
And I think that was one. Lynn emailed me sometime today, and I just didn't get a chance to respond. She was having trouble with her Android, but it is downloadable to Android.
It should be, yeah. It should be downloadable on Apple or Android. I don't have an Android device, but I'd be happy to try to help.
Okay.
Yeah, Ryan, you've just been awesome. Thank you so much.
Glad to help. Yeah.
And talking about videos, Tim, him and his daughter are just working on, by the end of the week, they said they would have to me a set of videos of roundtables and the benefit of the roundtables. And
yes,
of course, to build. So those will be uploaded too.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess that the thing is, guys, just think about like if I had, Papa Kelly in a room with me all by myself for 8 hours, what would I ask him? And we'll grab that information from him or for Mark. And just when you get around all these folks that you see on the screen, what do you want to know from them? And so if you have a content already, put that stuff on there that you think these other members on this call and those that aren't even on the call would benefit from. Put that up there, and that'll be a blessing. And Mark and I are talking about, I don't know, we haven't said anything, but there might be ongoing Zoom calls once a month, twice a month, however often you guys want to do that. Some of the stuff I've done in my other groups, if we could interview people, somebody could come on and teach something. I mean, really, the sky is the limit. It needs, obviously, you have to have a reason to come here. You all are very, very busy doing stuff. So I guess the question would be, and you could put this in the group or message me or Mark, what would make you want to be a part of a platform like this? Like, why would you're all busy. So what would make you take time out of your day to come and pop in for a minute to watch a quick video, or just what would make it valuable to you? And that's what we want to build.
Yeah. And like a couple of things we wrote down here, a succession plan. What does that look like? And I think I think it was Jim that said, what is a pathway into the apostolic? Like what School of Hard Knocks, is that it?
Right.
With someone like, let's say, Jeff McCracken, who's a teacher, has a school. Jeff, you could put some videos together for us. It's not like everything's going to come from Nikki and me. I think our power is from the collective. where everyone is bringing something to the table. And, you put something up there if you don't mind sharing it for our members. And that opportunity, I think, is just exponential.
Absolutely.
Lynn, I wanted to give you a chance. I'm going to probably take the last maybe 5 minutes or so, and I wanted to keep this under an hour so everybody can expect when we do these. I don't want it to be more than an hour. So, Lynn, I think there was even a time where you started to say something and didn't, regarding maybe that extra room or anything about the conference, which, by the way, I hope you know how appreciative everybody on this call is for all of the hard work that you do at that conference. It's just an amazing thing.
Thank you. Thank you. It was amazing. Thanks to all the people we brought together. I think our new AV team and the Houston Angels, my staff from there, and just everybody. And of course, Austin Flores and his worship team, his band. I think that made a lot of difference, right? Fantastic. The only thing with expanding is guaranteeing that we can have the numbers that actually register. And historically with Ical, most of the registration comes in the month before. But with a hotel, if you're trying to reserve a room, a wider space, more of the ballroom, I have to know way in advance that we're going to be able to fill that. And then I have to talk to the Hyatt to see how many more guest rooms we would have to guarantee in order to cover that cost, because we don't literally pay for the space in dollars. We pay for it in guest room reservations. That's how that works. With the number of guest rooms we reserve, which we have a contract that we've signed 2 years in advance, we have to make amendments to that. And so projecting is not easy. It's very difficult for us to be able to be assured that we could fill that space with a number of people to make it comfortable. Another alternative next year is to have less classroom tables, because they take up the maximum number of room. Right. If we have more just chairs, we have a lot of classroom table seating, but then we have just regular chairs. We can fill that space with a lot more people. I just choose to put up the classroom because it's so convenient.
If you get there early, you get a table with your chair. If you're late, sorry.
Yes. So it has to do with pre-planning, because the hotel wants to sell their space. And if they can sell that space in January, they're going to sell it. And I can't guarantee something in November if I really have no assurance how many people are actually going to attend. That is our dilemma.
Yeah, are people able to register as early as January?
Yes, I will have that done and set up in January.
Because our first roundtable is down there with Tim Byler. And Region 4 is those people are just on fire down there. They're it's amazing. So they're setting a model really for all of us to see what is possible. But we're there, Nikki and I will be there the second full week of January on the 13th and 14th. So every one of these roundtables will push that as much as we possibly can to say, hey, early, get things booked early, take the time off, and let's try to get this done as early as possible so we can see the trends that way.
Yeah, that would really help. We haven't raised the price in 5 years, and we give a discount on it. So that may need to come into a little bit of discussion this year, because we have more expenses with the WAHOVA, with the translation. We translate in 4 languages. We're actually going to be able to provide almost 50 languages next year. And that costs us money. So, and if we're not raising the registration, I'm just throwing this out here, as a consideration. Pray about it, please. Think about it, because we have to cover those costs. And if we're short on guest room rentals in the Hyatt, we have to cover those expenses.
Right.
So registration is really critical, really, really critical. A lot of things hinge on that.
Yeah. And Lynn, I don't know if you probably already know this, but for the benefit of everyone else, because we do some pretty big events as well. A lot of times a hotel, when they get close to their capacity, they don't want to rent out the last remaining bit of their capacity to one group, because if that event falls through, they don't have a hotel booked at all. So the best thing for the hotel is to have multiple groups that are coming in at the same time and diversifying their risk. And so that's another consideration. So I think, my instinct is better use of that current space that we have, unless we really get a lot of early registrations, and you'd be able to really guarantee it will fill that new space.
Yes. Yeah, they have to make money and they have to know in advance. It's very difficult. This was one of the first years where the hotel was literally maxed out. The guest rooms, it was almost totally sold out because they had events coming in. And then they always have to keep rooms aside in case of emergencies at the airport because they house the airline people and other people that are stranded at that airport. So there's just all these factors to consider.
Well, we're going to take one more observation, and that's going to come from Barbara Becker. And then I'm going to talk about some of the ideas that were thrown around just as in the idea space. That's all, just brainstorming here a little bit to conclude. But first, we'll go to Barbara.
Well, mine is actually a question, because I would have probably brought more with me, and I'm going to work on that this year because we have several that we're working with here in North Dakota that I would love to see come to Ical. But do they have to be a member to register and to come? They do not. Well, then that settles that. I will be pushing the buttons all over the place.
Good.
So thank you. That's all I wanted.
So let me throw this out just as a dream idea. So in this debrief meeting that I was a part of, there might have been 5 or 6 people in there, and I had a suggestion. So I had my hand up, but another fellow did too, and it was Renee Terranova. And Renee communicated to us that his people would love to have a certificate saying that they came to this conference because they receive so much teaching that they never get, that it meant a lot for them to be here. And if there was something they could take home with them. And then, of course, why didn't I think of that was my first response, because I understand how important it is for the international members and guests to receive those certificates. It means more to them than we can possibly imagine. And besides, they don't have the ability to just be exposed to the kind of teaching that we have here in the United States very easily, in fact. So that was a great idea. Well, my suggestion was to rethink the 2:00 afternoon general session. And that's because I'm tired. And I did the general session at 2:00 on Tuesday, and you feel like you're up there having to do a song and dance to keep people's attention. It's overload. And I think if there's been one thing that's been repeated forever at our conference is everything is so good, but boy, it's a lot. It's like grandma that just keeps bringing out food and putting on your plate. It's like, I got to digest some of this. So we need to have digest space. Now, I'm not sure whether this thing that we talked about even accomplishes that or not. It may make it worse, but let your mind dream a little bit. What if we were able to do something like assign people at 2:00 to a particular breakout space that they are going to be at for the whole conference in their group? Maybe they sign up for something like this. Maybe it's just something we assign. The logistics of it, dreams aren't bothered by logistics until we can dream the dream a little bit. So, people like Lynn that have that administrative ability, they're calculating how many seats do we have versus how many people are in the room in the conference. And, but just let yourself imagine this, that at 2:00, you are assigned to a particular room. And for 3 days, you're going to be in that same room with the same people. So you're making some connections. Meanwhile, there's a rotation of teachers, 6 of them. Imagine this.
Maybe it's Judy, 1980.
Oh, someone mute yourself. There you go. So imagine that there are teachers, and at 2:00, you have an instructor, and you get a classroom experience from that instructor from 2 to 3. Then you take a break. At 3:15, you have a second instructor. So 2 classes for 3 days. You have 6 different instructors with 6 different subjects. And then Cottle spoke up and said, he's got a school of CES, School of Christian Life Theology. Help me here. CLTS. Is that right? What is it, Stan? What's his? I can't hear you.
I believe his is called Embassy now, but of course he was the founder of CLST Global.
Okay.
And Dr. Russ is here. He can speak to that. But
okay.
Anyway,
so he spoke up and said, yeah, maybe we can put together a curriculum that would be recognized by these organizations that over the course of, say, 3 years, they could actually earn a certificate, some kind of a diploma. So, everybody's wheels are turning on this. Now, not everyone would take advantage of that. I think a lot of us that maybe have had a lot of classes, maybe we're not going to be in all 6 of the sessions that we could be exposed to. We may even want to take some of that time to connect personally in the afternoons. But I thought that would be a tremendous benefit to the whole conference to be able to say, not only do you get these general sessions, but you have private classroom where you get 40 minutes of lecture, and we wouldn't record these. If you're not there, you don't get it. So we don't have to worry about all the logistics of finding AV material. We're not going to do AV. You walk in, people have notebooks, and they do the old-fashioned thing. They actually take a pen and write out notes, which is probably a more effective way of learning than having everything done for you. So you have 40 minutes of lecture, 20 minutes of question and answer. Can you imagine getting our best teachers together and the opportunity that you would have to be able to sit and listen to Dr. Cottle, let's say, for a 40-minute lecture, and then raising your hand and having questions and answer for 20 minutes. And then you take your 15-minute break and you have another person. I think that the idea is outstanding. And I think offering that as part of this conference experience, well, I mean, when you talk about like the price of registration, I think it's how much? $350 for members?
It's 300.
300 for members. So think about what you're getting, the justification of raising that, even in the scope or in the even within the idea of this opportunity to have these classes, and especially for so many international leaders who have never been to Bible college. They've not had that opportunity. To me, I just thought, wow, my brain was just going 1,000 miles an hour looking at the possibility of this. So that's something that logistically, I mean, we talked about people moving to different class spaces, but then I thought that's a logistic nightmare. What if we kept them stationary and just rotated the teachers? That's much easier. Now, it's a lot of responsibility of the teachers. Now, this would mean that every teacher would teach 2 hours for 3 days. But listen, if you've ever been on the mission field, that's cake. That's easy. Like,
Oh man.
teach 2 sessions a day for 3 days. A novice can do that. Okay. We've got professionals in the room. That ain't nothing to them. And they would, teachers love to teach. So we've got great teachers, and we can supplement people's lives and change them in a way that I think is really beneficial. So that's kind of some of the brainstorming that came out of the immediate debrief. So I wanted to throw that up to you and just kind of get an initial reaction. You can do that now. We're running out of time, so you may want to think about it, and then you can get a hold of me and give me some of your reactions. But I thought that was an outstanding kind of section.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we've got people like Stan DeKoven, we've got Randall Langley, we've got people who do this for a living that can put together, a kind of curriculum. And these classes need to be, we talk about young people coming on board. They need to be focused on not what has been, but what is to come. And we could even center it around, like, what's it mean to be an apostolic pastor versus a traditional pastor? What does the pathway into apostolic gifting look like? And we could take the 5-fold ministry and then put a marketplace piece in that. And, I think people would love to hear from Jim McCall Martin, and they would love to hear, from others that have been so successful.
Right. I got that question at the conference. People wanted to know, how do you do it?
Right.
They heard it all, but how do you do it? How do you get there?
Yes.
From where they're at to where they need to be. And I'm all for changing the schedule. Very much.
Yeah. Well, we have to. We have to be innovative and forward thinking constantly innovating, constantly testing the boundaries and limitations, constantly reinventing ourselves, constantly rethinking even what works. I read a book on the way home called Pivot or Die. That's the title.
Right.
And I found it in the airport. We were running to the plane. I said, stop. I need a book. So I grabbed a book. And Pivot or Die, and this whole book is written as like the best time to pivot is when you're at the pinnacle. It's hard to know when you're there. The worst time to pivot is after you've already been dead. You got to pivot at the pinnacle. When things are good, it's when you need to change the most. And that's hard. It's hard to know. But the conference needs to reflect what's happening in the movement.
Yeah.
All of us are necessary to even know what's happening in the movement, because no single person can be at all these different places at once.
Right. Good.
All right. So you guys, you can text me. I think probably everybody has my cell number, email address. You can text me, email me, get a hold of me. Thanks for being a part of this debrief. Reread the comments. If there's people you want to connect with, be sure you do that. Thanks for everyone. Thanks, Lynn, again, for everything that you have done. And Ryan, thank you for what you're doing on that platform too. You're serving.
Glad to help.
All right.
Roger, Dodger. All right,
Mark, could you guys share the date for 2025 before we hang up?
November 10th through the 14th. It's that week, November 10th week.
And 10th is on a Monday, I assume?
Yes. We start on a Monday.
Yep.
Pretty much with all those meetings. Maybe we'll change that too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, those meetings. Yeah. And we need to rethink it all. Yeah. Always innovating.
Yeah.
All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for being a part on this call. And
thank you.
get a hold of me if you need it. We will repost this. We've recorded it, and we will send out a link. Number one, we'll send it out on Mighty. And then I'll probably post it on the Facebook page and on the Ical Facebook that Lynn oversees, and we'll send it out in the newsletter. So we'll make sure that you get an opportunity to see this again if you need to, and to share it with others.
Amen.
It was a great conference and a great Zoom.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.